to you, Judy. All right. So it's great to have a meeting where people are willing to have their videos on too. We appreciate that. And know if you need a break, we don't take it personally if you turn off your video. So first, just want to acknowledge that this is the information session for the proposed Safe Stay Community Site number 2. And the city did a wide-reaching outreach effort. We're having actually 3 different meetings to provide information about this proposed Safe Stay community. And there have been letters that have gone out to residents within a certain vicinity, as well as multiple neighborhood associations were notified of this, and lots of different ways that the community got the message out. Want to let you know that we have a lot of folks here who are working as the city team for this project. And so you can just wave your hand here if you're one of those folks right now. You'll be meeting some of those people who are doing presentations a little bit later. And we also want to thank community partners that are here today. Adam Kravitz and Ren Autry from Outsiders Inn, who are actually running the contractors for the first Safe Stay community, as well as Brian Norris from Living Hope Church. And Judy, just want to check if there's anyone else, elected officials from the community that we just want to note are here.
Council member Diana Perez is in the audience.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Diana. All right, and I gotta just look at my list here for a moment. I first just wanted to introduce you to our Deputy City Manager, Lon Plucken, who is going to be sharing a few words with you about tonight's session. So Lon, do you want to take it away? And if you want to spotlight Lon now.
No one told me he was going to switch the spotlight over. Thank you.
The recording.
Thank you, Nancy. So I do want to take a few minutes here just to say thanks to everyone for taking some time out of the evening to come and participate in this public input session. It's important for the city whenever we start to embark on a project like this to make sure we hear from the neighborhoods that are potentially going to be asked to be kind of a host community for one of these types of safe stay locations. You know, the goal that we have as a community is to have an evidence-based, effective response to the issue of homelessness around the city of Vancouver. And in December, we started up the very first of our Safe Stay communities over on 51st Circle. And I know that we have a couple of our operators in the audience tonight. So I want to say thanks to them for all the efforts they're putting into making that one a success, because what we've seen so far, in my estimation, has really been kind of nothing short of astounding. I had high hopes going in because I'm kind of an eternal optimist, but just the results that we've seen in that community, providing a stable place for people to use as a launching pad to kind of reintegrate back into society, has been nothing short of remarkable. From people being able to seek treatment, to being able to apply for jobs, to having a safe place to come and recover from getting needed medical care. It really is the foundation that we were hoping it would be for people to be able to rebuild their lives. And we would expect that the Safe Stay community would really serve that same purpose, but in a new location. You know, ultimately, we want to have 4 or 5 of these around the community and a couple of the safe parks, which are the vehicle-based ones, of which we have one already. And I think as far as one of the things that I'm taking away from the operations of the first site is that it really did shift the response to homelessness in the community away from emergency services being police and fire response to being service provider response and community response. It's really been embraced by the neighborhood and our partner organizations. Some days it feels like they're overflowing with food coming in for people providing support, and really hoping that the community will just wrap its arms around the Safe Stay 2 site. Always available for questions, happy to answer them. My side of the house is the one that is responsible for dealing with the homelessness and housing response across the community. So reach out to me if you have any questions. Other than that, we'll go ahead and move on.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that update, Lon, on what's happened with Safe Stay One and our hopes for this next community that we're going to be talking about tonight. Certainly is a great way to start that energy of hearing about the success for those residents, as well as how the community has embraced that site. So with this Zoom meeting, it's really hard for us to have connection, right? And so one of the things that we want to do is have you answer a short poll that will help us just see who's in the room. So we've got it up here. If you can just take a minute to let us know so that everyone here can get a sense of who's in the room. And you should be able to, oh, I guess. All right. And how about one more minute, Judy? Are you seeing participants?
Yes, we have folks are chiming in.
Okay. Yeah, just want to remind folks that this is being recorded, and I also noticed and appreciate the heads up for folks that we do have some members of the press here, and appreciate their interest as well in covering this information for your community. All right, so do you have a ability to share that poll results?
Let's see.
Judy? There we go. All right. Take a look at it. So looks like we have about 35% of you, a third, live nearby. Just under 10% work or own a business nearby. And then we've got a third of folks here who are from another part of the city. And then several people marked other. And so looking, I see we have Council Member Perez to saying you like to shop and eat close to the site. And I certainly love this area of Fourth Plain myself. So, all right. Really appreciate, that's a really diverse amount of interest. And again, it just highlights one of the cool things about Vancouver and the fact that folks are interested, even if this isn't your particular neighborhood. All right, so tonight I just want to go over to our agenda. And what we have planned for you tonight is some background information on the Safe Stay community and the proposed one. And then also we want to introduce you to the nonprofit service provider who is going to be managing that site. We want to take your questions and go over the next steps for this site and the ways that you can stay involved. The last thing I wanted to do is, and again, continue to share your questions on chat as you go through. We'll start to answer those. We'll probably answer a lot of them as we go through the presentation. And we'll also have time after the meeting. We were going till 8:30. If you would like to have some time just to ask a personal question without off the recording, so sort of off the record as well. To help make this meeting really be a productive one for everyone that's involved, we find that these guidelines really help everyone to participate fully and feel included. The first is speak from your own experience. Listen to understand each other. So turn on that understanding knob that you have. I don't think we have one down in Zoom, but I know each of us has one inside. Respect differences. Be curious if you're noticing a difference. And let's make time for everyone to participate. And again, we can't underscore enough. It's important that we hear your questions and hear your perspective and input. That's going to help shape what happens with this site and make sure that the city's aware of things that they might not be of without your input. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Jamie Spinelli, who is our homeless coordinator for the city. And Jamie, if you want to be spotlighted here.
Oh, not really. But I will. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Jamie Spinelli, and I am the homeless response coordinator for the city of Vancouver. My role at the city is to specifically address the impacts of unsheltered homelessness. So we've got other staff and departments that work on things like developing affordable housing, contracts for rental assistance and other housing programs. But my job is to manage how we deal with what we are all seeing outside. So that more chronically unsheltered population. Homelessness has become, I think, probably other than COVID, one of the larger issues of our day, particularly over the last 3 to 5 years. And we are not alone in this. I know sometimes it can feel that way, but homelessness has reached crisis levels all over the country, even though it may look different in other parts of the country based on how much shelter capacity they have. So a great example of that is the fact that I've seen comments from people who have visited New York and think that it doesn't look as bad as it does on the West Coast. But that's largely because places like New York have right to shelter laws, which means that they are required to have enough shelter capacity for everyone experiencing homelessness. And that's just not the case in a lot of other communities. So it does look different everywhere. Interestingly enough, though, overall homeless numbers have actually decreased nationwide. And that's because homelessness is not just who you see outside. It's also people who are in shelters, people who are doubled up, people who are in vehicles. But unsheltered homelessness specifically has increased drastically nationwide. And that's largely due to HUD funding priorities. And I could go into a whole other webinar about that, which I'm not going to do tonight, but trust me that is the reason. While the increase in the amount of people we're seeing living outdoors here seems to be fairly new to a lot of people, we've actually been experiencing similar numbers for quite some time. But the visibility of it has increased significantly since 2020, and that's largely due to COVID. In order to reduce transmission of the virus, CDC, public health agencies all over the country recommended leaving camps in place in most cases. So people who have been experiencing unsheltered homelessness for many years have been able to kind of set up camp in a spot and largely be left alone to do so for a couple of years now, which is it's a pretty big change from how camps were addressed pre-COVID. Also due to COVID, our community and many others have not conducted unsheltered point in time counts since just prior to the pandemic, although we are actually doing one this Thursday. So the data from our last unsheltered count, which was in 2019, showed that we have a little over 500 people living unsheltered in all of Clark County. But I think it's important to know that these counts are considered a pretty significant undercount because it's just a snapshot of a single point in time, which we do around the same time every single year. And it kind of just gives us a baseline of what's happening in our community and allows us to look at trends and compare year-to-year data. As someone who comes from a street outreach background, I've done that in this community for 12 years, and I still participate in it daily. I can tell you that we probably have easily 500 to 600 people living unsheltered just within city limits. So that's not including unincorporated and the other smaller cities. So the graphic that's on this slide shows just a few of the reasons that individuals report experiencing homelessness, but there are many reasons that someone can fall into homelessness. The homeless community is just as diverse as the housed community, and because of that, solutions need to also be diverse. There is no one single solution to homelessness. Next slide, please. So in the same vein, there is no one single entity that will be able to solve homelessness either. Addressing homelessness requires a great deal of public and private partnership. So city, county, nonprofits, the faith community, and many individual residents all work together in this community and others across the country to address homelessness in some way. And these are just some of them. So these are some shelter providers, food banks, domestic violence shelters, housing authority, transportation. What's not included here is like behavioral health organizations and healthcare. And I mean, it literally homelessness touches like every single system of a community. Next slide, please. So last May, a plan for addressing the impacts of unsheltered homelessness was presented to and supported by City Council. I want to be real upfront about the fact that this plan is not intended to end homelessness. It is intended to address the very immediate and clear health and safety crisis of people living outdoors in our community, and all of the challenges that crisis brings with it. So trash, solid waste, people camping in public spaces, difficulty accessing services, etc. Developing the amount of affordable housing and even just brick and mortar shelter needed to support everyone who needs it in this community will likely take years. And it's just not healthy or safe for anyone in this community, housed or unhoused, or even for our environment, for people to be living in tents along the freeways and our trail systems, or in vehicles living on our streets as they work to resolve their homelessness. In fact, living in those conditions makes it exponentially more difficult for people to take steps needed to exit homelessness. So the purpose of the Safe State Communities helps us get people off the street and into safer, more humane living conditions so that they can stabilize and work on more permanent housing. Because we want them to be safe and effective for everyone, including the surrounding community, we're keeping them small with space for just 20 to 40 people at each site, staffed 24/7 with service providers that are very familiar and comfortable with working with the unhoused community. All Safe State Communities will have screened fencing, will provide sanitation and hygiene services, and offer a range of supportive services on site. Again, these are meant to be temporary, transitional spaces as people move on to something more permanent. So while the plan isn't intended to end homelessness, I do think that it supports the overall plan of helping everyone obtain more permanent housing situations for themselves. Next slide. So this particular site is being proposed because it meets the site selection criteria that council approved last year, as well as some of their priorities, which include needing to be within a half-mile public transit, being equitably spaced away from other supportive sites around the city, so as not to overburden any one particular area or neighborhood. The first one is further east over on 51st off of 112th. We attempt to avoid residential areas that are considered more economically vulnerable when possible, and attempting to serve people as close to where they already are as possible. We really are not looking to move people into or out of any particular area, because just like the housed community, people experiencing homelessness also choose where they stay for various reasons, like being close to family or supports, close to services that are important to them, or even just because it's an area they're most comfortable or familiar with. We've also included a 1,000-foot no camping buffer around each Safe State community, again, because we don't want to overburden any one area. And this is something that can and will be enforced by the HEART team, the NPOs, or just law enforcement in general. Next slide, please. So the first Safe State community opened on December 23rd last year, just before Christmas and just days before the snow hit. It's managed by Outsiders In, who is doing a phenomenal job, as Lon just mentioned. So just in the 2 months that it's been opened, we've already got people who have obtained employment, some who've completed detox and treatment, folks who are accessing mental health services, needed medications, lots of people replacing IDs, and a few who have just recently been referred to housing programs and should be moving out of there pretty soon. And that's 2 months is a really short period of time to accomplish all that. So people really are using this opportunity to move forward, and it's working exactly as it should. I don't know if Ren or Adam want to share anything at this point, but they are here if you had anything else you wanted to add.
I know it's been exciting to watch everybody pull together as a community. They've really been able to have the community meetings, and that's really where I've been really excited to see some of the growth. I know that Adam's got some more details about it, but that's been part of the biggest excitement is seeing that community come together and start to supporting each other. I think a lot of times the people didn't really know what was next, and now they're really having to start thinking about what these next steps are. And like had already been mentioned, IDs and mental health access, accessing appointments, and then really collaborating with the community organizations. Yeah, I don't know, is Adam here? He's got some more thoughts on that.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Adam Kravitz from Outsiders In, and that was Ren Autry. The biggest thing for us, all the accomplishments, I can't even say the word, accomplishments of what people have accomplished. There we go. I'll say it backwards. The things that people have managed to get done is only a result of providing the stability. Geez, not getting my words out tonight. It's all about the stability. And when we had our community meeting, we sat down together, and we do this week after week after week. We really get to see different human beings. We get to see just, honestly, for me, it's to start seeing their smiles again. And it's to know that they feel safe enough to be around people, to smile and be comfortable and be who they are. And they can joke and they can laugh and they can talk how they want. And that's where community comes from. And that's when they can start talking about what's next and share, their journey. What we do is we just share our journey together, and we have our journey and they have their journey, and we're very comfortable doing that with these folks. And here's where the magic happens. And so for me, it was seeing the difference in their ability to take care of themselves, and the look and the walk and the pride and the confidence of not having to struggle every day just to survive. That's what we're trying to do here with these safe stay communities, is just get folks a chance to not have to think about daily survival, about their warmth, about their needs, about their food, about support that's not going to somehow be dangerous to them. So safety is the biggest thing that we have brought and we will bring to people. And it's really a beautiful thing. And it's what we experience in our own homes on a regular basis, that we forget that that's part of our daily life, that safety and security. And we provide it, and then people start to shine. And we're super happy with what's happened.
Thank you. That's good stuff. Okay. I think we've got some pictures of what they look like coming next. So this is what the inside of the pallet shelters look like. There are 20 units on each site. Each of these units have power, lighting, heat, outlets to charge phones. There's 2 beds in each unit. It's really just very basic, but far better than a tent and tarps, I can tell you that. This is a grand opening back in December, and actually most of these people are other service providers, all of whom visit the sites to provide various supportive services to site residents, except I do see my dad in the background. But most of these are outreach workers, behavioral health workers, and people who support folks who are living outside. Next slide, please. So Living Hope Church was selected through an RFP process to manage the second safe stay community, wherever that may be located. So it will be their job to maintain safety, cleanliness, and security of the site. They'll have it staffed 24/7, my dog. And they'll be working with folks on transitioning out of homelessness, just as Outsiders In is doing at the first site. Living Hope has been an excellent partner over the years in serving our unhoused neighbors. For several years, they've provided the only walk-in severe weather shelter during our coldest months. They have weekly outreach services where people get a hot meal, a food box, grab a shower. In 2020, they partnered with Council for the Homeless in the city to open a tent camp on their property for several months at the beginning of COVID to ensure that some folks had a way to shelter in place. So while safe state communities are a fairly new concept here in Vancouver, serving our homeless community is certainly nothing new for Living Hope Church. And I'll see if Brian wants to share anything while I put my dog outside.
Hi, all. Brian Norris with Living Hope Church. I think there's a part a little bit later on, right, Jamie, for me to share?
She just went and took her dog.
Okay, well, I guess I'll share now, and I'll just maybe repeat myself. But so I've been with Living Hope Church since 2012. We've always had a vision to just kind of help those in our community that are struggling, that are hurting, that are just down on their luck. Everyone needs to be encouraged. Everyone needs a little bit of hope in their life. And, it started out as just kind of a shelter in the winter was kind of what it birthed out of. So we'd open up our church and allow people to come in and sleep and just find refuge from the cold weather. And that's, as you see some of the pictures from, I think earlier this year when we opened up, that's turned into doing, like Jamie mentioned, a tent city in 2020. It's done this past summer when we had the 115-degree temps. We did a cooling center inside the church. What you see here is our Wednesday, Sunday, we provide a place inside the church for people to come get lunches, food to take home, showers, clothing, anything that you can possibly imagine. There's some clothing. And again, it's speaking just encouragement and in a way, case managing, just how can we get you from point A to point B? I don't know what other pictures we have there. The shower trailer, just providing, again, that hot shower, that hot meal just does so much to the soul. So, yeah. So we're just excited to be this is an extension of that. We just, again, we see it as our heart, as our vision, just to be a contributor to our community, doing the best we can to just be an asset. And this is just kind of extending that arm a little bit further off the campus, but by no means is it that way. Because as you saw in the pictures, we're going to continue doing our twice a week at the church, providing food, clothing, showers, all that good stuff. So this is just another way to kind of extend to a community that may not be able to get to us, but just to continue providing services.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. There we go. So to kind of bring it back to our overall goal of addressing the immediate health and safety crisis, these safe state communities play a role in providing for the safety and security of everyone in our community. So the folks who desperately need some shelter and stability to be able to move forward in life, but also for the surrounding community. There are already many people camping in this particular area, just as there are in many other parts of the city. So in addition to providing safer spaces for people to transition from homelessness, these sites will also reduce some of the random unsanctioned camping that we're currently seeing across the city. In this area, it's very near Burnt Bridge Creek, down along the Andreessen area, 500 in Andreessen, up on Stapleton. And then I've also asked each contracted service provider, so both Outsiders Inn and Living Hope and whoever runs any of our future sites, to do some very intentional community building, kind of as Adam briefly touched on. There tends to be a pretty large divide between housed and unhoused community members. And I think that closing that gap can only make our community healthier. So neighborhoods with safe state communities will eventually see those residents out helping to clean up the neighborhoods and participating in community and neighborhood events, because we truly want these to be assets to our community and assets to our neighborhoods, not burdens. And I believe that we're seeing that out at our 51st site already. I think that that's great evidence that this is possible. So like I mentioned earlier, both the HEART team and neighborhood police officers can be called on to enforce that no camping buffer, as well as address any other safety concerns. The site will be staffed 24/7, so there will always be someone there that can be contacted if there are any concerns specific to that site at any time. And I'm also an available resource. I talk to so many community members all day, every day. And I spend a lot of time at the current site as well as the Safe Park, and I will spend a lot of time at the second site that will be no different. And I don't know if Officer Chavers from our HEART team is here, and I don't know if he has any other thoughts on how the first site is going in regards to, I don't know, public safety and security that might translate over to this site as well.
Only that very pleasantly, I wouldn't say surprised, because you said it's working like it's supposed to, but I guess glad that it is working like that, because I think police in the last 2 months have only been requested to come out to the site twice, and one of those times was me. It was certainly not an emergency. It was a situation that needed to be addressed, which means the system's working like it should. There's a set of expectations for folks when they're staying there. If they don't want to live up to those expectations, then they're gonna have to find a different place to work out their issues, and you know, they're welcome back if they want to re-engage. So it's significantly reduced the amount of police resources that were involved with that, you know, community in that area. I mean, tremendous. I couldn't even imagine 2 calls in 2 months is nothing compared to the practically daily calls that we were getting when it was an unsanctioned camp. This site would be a little different because it's not starting as an unsanctioned camp that we'd have to clear or anything like that. But as Jamie pointed out, there is a lot of unsanctioned camping, not as visible, but it's certainly there. And we're often being called to complaints about the negative impacts of the folks being outside. So this would help reduce some of that and maybe bring a little bit more attention to it as well. More kind of happenstance than anything. It certainly didn't have anything to do with the siting of this particular location, but it's walking distance from our Vancouver West precinct. Vancouver deploys out of 2 precincts, east and west. And so basically half of our entire force is actually housed, like I said, just right around a corner on Stapleton Road. So while the site itself will be staffed 24/7, we are definitely a 24/7 service agency in the city and will always be nearby.
Thank you. And I think that's the end of my presentation part.
Okay. And I think we also have Sheila Andrews, who's also part of the HEART team, right, Sheila?
She is, yeah, Sheila's here. So I didn't go into great detail. I figured I would later on, probably in regards to questions.
Okay.
But the HEART team, I'll just go ahead and tell you, the HEART team is the city's kind of outreach team in a way. So it consists of myself, Officer Shavers, and Sheila Andrews. Tyler and I are kind of like the outreach team. We go out and provide outreach services to individuals experiencing homelessness, but we also serve as like main point of contact for other community members just looking for answers or response to anything homelessness related. And then Sheila, who is like a unicorn, is our public works arm. And so she assesses camps for solid waste cleanup needs. She coordinates all of those cleanup efforts. And then she's also got a great deal of experience working with the homeless community as well. So she also kind of pulls double duty as an outreach worker, connecting people to services and really just kind of building those relationships with folks. So we can be reached. I think our email is on one of these slides at some point, as well as our phone number. So when you submit something on the My Vancouver app, that comes directly to the 3 of us.
Great. Well, I think if you're ready, Jamie, then we can move to the community question portion of this. So folks, there's a lot of different ways you can raise your question. You can use that reaction button, or you can just turn on your video and do old school, because there's not too many of us here, or you can put a question in the chat. So who would like to start with the question? Anything we haven't answered that you'd like a little bit more information on? No, it was pretty thorough presentation. Oh, I see Paula Person. Where are you, Paula? There you are. Great. Go ahead. You have to take yourself off mute. Paula. There you go. Go for it.
All right. I may have missed part of that, but when you opened up in December, I'm curious as to how many people right away moved in and where they came from.
Sure,
Like,
good question. So I believe we had just 17 people through that first initial weekend. And all of those folks came from the camp that was on that property. Space at that site was offered to, I think, everyone except for one person that was camping at that site. And just a few did not take us up on that offer. And so then as time has gone on, after they got everybody kind of checked in over that first week or so and got everybody connected to case managers and whatnot, and the snow died down, we started kind of filling in with other people who were nearby. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area, but there was also a large camp just up the street, 112th behind Burger King and McDonald's. So the opening of this site, as well as the opening of Bertha's Place Shelter, which is at the old Howard Johnson by the mall, the opening of these two kind of in conjunction with each other completely cleared that camp as well. I think now they're running with like 26, 27 people on the site.
Okay. Well, you've got what, 775 more to go or
That's
something.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So have some of these people, you said, moved on with getting help or other issues that were being met?
Oh yeah. So we've got tons of people who we've got a few that have gotten jobs. A couple of those have now been referred to housing programs and should be probably moving out sometime in the next month or so. We've got some that have gone to treatment and come back because we held their space, which is not typical in shelters. Typically, if you leave a shelter, even if it's for treatment, your space is not held. So then you're exited right back into homelessness. So yeah, tons of great movement.
Okay, I just want to say I'm pleased with your progress and your work and Tyler's work and wish you well to move forward with the rest of your plans.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Paula.
Well, it's nice to hear, Paula. A lot of times, I know government employees tend to hear more complaints than appreciation. So I think that's landing very nicely for these folks who are working really hard for both the unhoused residents, but also for the housed residents. So thank you so much. How about anybody else? Other questions here? I have some that I can ask, but I want to just make sure that folks who are here have a chance to raise things. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking because it's recorded, you can put it into the chat and I'm happy to ask that question for you. Rolling through. Well, a couple questions that came through to the city that I'll just follow up on a little bit. I believe we did answer the questions, but others might be interested in those. One question was whether the residents of this community will have access to treatment options, including being able to attend meetings like Alcoholics Anonymous or other type of self-help groups. So Adam, I'm wondering Adam or Brian, you want to answer that? And then I see Brandy, you've got a question. So Brian, maybe you take that away as the new proposed contractor.
Yeah, sure. So myself personally, I have a background in recovery and, I'm one of those individuals that kind of came from brokenness and have seen hope. And that's kind of where my personal heart's invested in this. So yeah, it'll be one of the, I wouldn't say requirements because not everyone obviously is an addict, but It'll be definitely encouraged to those struggling with any kind of substance abuse. A lot of my team are recovery coaches that we'll be bringing on, and peer support and all that. So, it's just my heart to continue passing that message along to anyone who's struggling, and having that firsthand experience, not just book knowledge, but actually something I've dealt with. Yeah. So it's definitely, I want to say a big bonus on our end. So.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Brandy, go ahead and ask your question.
This may be too soon to ask, but assuming that this gets approved, do you have any idea what kind of volunteer opportunities will be available? I live in the neighborhood, or close to the neighborhood. I live in Maplewood. I'd like to volunteer in different capacities if possible. If anyone knows of any yet, it's probably too soon, but I like to keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And either Adam and Rin or Brian might have some other ideas. Off the top of my head, I can tell you what I see people volunteering with over at the first site is a lot of meal delivery, just dropping off like paper supplies, cups, plates, silverware, things like that, as well as donating clothing. Although we've had a couple of the fun things are that we've had some painting parties over the last month, which I have been very excited about. So that's been kind of just a fun thing to go out and do. And I think another one of those great like community building exercises, right? Just kind of come hang out and provide support, encouragement, and do something fun together. There have been some people who are interested in coming out and helping people learn how to do some like container gardening, grow your own food, grow your own plants, which is also very therapeutic. And then I don't know if any of the other guys have some ideas, but those are the few that I've just thought of.
Yeah, I like to talk a lot. So Brandy, even like this week over at the church, we're open probably all the way through Friday as a warming center with the cold weather we're experiencing. So I'll put my email in the chat, but we're always looking for volunteers to step up and put in an hour or two or 8 of we try to open from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Here on the property just to get people out of the cold weather. So I'll put my email in there and feel free to shoot me an email and I can give you some volunteer. But even on the site, there's going to be plenty of options for that kind of thing is how we envision it. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Great. And it looks like Ren also put a resource to check out in the chat. And I see Bethany has a question, and I think we'll direct this to Adam first and then to Brian. We've sort of got the initial site and now the new site, and maybe you'll start to understand how these are connected. So her question is, what is your screening process? You said you didn't offer a spot to someone at the first spot. Why was that? So Adam, can you take that and then pass it on to Brian to talk about the screening process that'll be used for the.
Sure. I can clarify a little bit. With the first site, we were very intentional, the city and us, to go out with that encampment that had to be displaced and work with those folks for a month prior to the displacement and really like work with those individuals and explain to them what we were planning, what we want to do and how it was going to work, and then offer them a safe, secure spot, in this new encampment. Of course, there was a 3-week displacement where they scattered and had to go to other places. It wasn't the best, but it was the best we could do as a group and a collaboration. Out of all those folks, most of those folks, all of those folks were offered a spot. Not all those folks took the offer. And after the 3 weeks of displacement, some of those folks just were in different situations. Some of them actually got in a place where they were safe. Some moved away. Some just were not wanting to come into the structure that we were offering. All those options are okay. And those people are still available to come back at any time. For our referral process and how we place people at this point, we're working very closely with the outreach teams in the community. Most people probably don't know that outreach in this community has increased probably tenfold in the last 2 years or in the last year since COVID. And that makes a greater opportunity for all the different organizations that are doing outreach to connect with folks. And we wanted to offer our opportunity as an opportunity for people who are intently working with someone who is working on their recovery goals, their recovery stuff. And we look at recovery as not just recovery from addiction. Recovery is not just addiction. Recovery is recovery from homelessness, recovery from mental health, recovery from the trauma of having to live on the streets every day. So anybody who's intently working on addressing those things and working with an outreach worker has the opportunity to come to our community. And those outreach workers will write a letter of referral. That person that wants to come to our community will understand what they're stepping into and will write a letter about why they want to come. And there'll be an application process and an invite to come view the community. So we're very intentional about what we have to offer, what we want people to be thinking about if they come there. At the same time as we're working with some folks in our community that didn't necessarily know what our model was. And so there's a lot of stuff that we're working on at the same time. And the results that we're getting from folks that didn't even understand what we had to offer has been amazing. And I'm very confident that our process of inviting folks in and going through this is going to continue to be the same process where we're going to see human beings coming out and working on their stuff. Remember, the folks that we work with are guiding the process. We are not. And they get to choose what next steps are for them. And so every human has a different process and every human has a different thing that they feel is important to them. And for us, we just support, encourage, empower, and sit beside people while they do the steps that they already knew how to do.
Yeah, that's great. And Brian may have some of his own details, but I wanted to share kind of in between that it really is my my goal, my hope that there's a lot of consistency between all of these sites in regards to what the referral process looks like, what the screening process looks like. You know, they're each going to kind of have their own flavor, you know, based on who's operating them. But I do want them to run very similarly in regards to like who comes in and what are the expectations and code of conduct. You know, it's very important that people be working on something, moving forward in some way. And I don't know if Brian's got their like application process completed or anything like that yet, but I would imagine it would be very similar.
Yeah, so I guess first of all, working with Adam and Ren is not something new to us. We've been doing it for quite a few years. We have a great relationship with them, and that's Freddie. Anybody on here, the community really works together. It's really unified lately, and it's over the past several years. It's just been awesome. So we'll be following a lot of what Outsiders In has done with the first side as far as screening and all that. Before I move forward, I do want to introduce Doug Frazier. He's the other one on the call now with me. He's the lead pastor here at Living Hope Church, so he'll be on the rest of the night with us. But yeah, I guess to add to it, we just want to see people that are. It's not a camp. It's going to be a transitional village, basically. We want to provide stability. So we see different kinds of people. Like right now at the warming shelter here at the church, we're very low barriers. So we have people that, you know, that just need a warm place tonight. But when we go into this village safe stay, it'll be more people that want to kind of transition on to that next step, whatever that would look like. It's all individually based, but that'll be the main requirement. Is it's not just a place to come squat for a year. It's really to transition on. So, but we'll be working a lot with Adam. And Adam, you spoke everything I'd want to say, and great to see you.
Great. All right. Thank you. So Kendall has a question in the chat around the selection for the site criteria, noting that one of the selection criteria is that the sites be equitably dispersed throughout the city in relation to other existing supportive campsites. And so question was, with the other community being approximately 4 miles away and the Living Hope Church and Vancouver Navigation Center about 1.5 miles away, what makes this site meet that criteria for equitable disbursement?
Sure, good question. So I think maybe I was not super clear when I talked about equitable dispersion. I mean the city's sanctioned sites, so safe parks and safe stay communities. There is only one right now, and it is 4 miles away ish from this site. The Navigation Center is not open. The Navigation Center has been closed since 2020, so that's not That is not an open city site. That building's been purchased by the library, actually. So it is, a distance away, a decent distance away. So we've got one that's more east side. Now we've got potentially one that's more central, and then we're also looking at west side for future sites. So I guess that's my response to that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Kendall? I want to make sure that I answered it.
Yeah. Well, let us know in the chat if you have another question, Kendall, or a follow-up. I think the phrasing of equitably dispersed, it's really easy to have everyone have their own definition of it. And I
Sure.
know my sense is the city is wanting to be really clear about those criteria.
Sure.
And that the word equitable is my
Yeah.
sense of what
I can tell you that actually the navigation center is the experience with the navigation center is actually where that piece of the criteria came from. Like that piece, as well as having them be small, just 20 to 40 people. Because what we experienced and what the neighborhood surrounding the navigation center experienced was that this one place in this very small, kind of sometimes struggling neighborhood experienced the brunt of like the entire homeless population, because it was the only one. And so it would sometimes draw, almost 200 people a day into that site. So there really have been some lessons learned from that experience. And so we wanted to make sure that we were not just overburdening one neighborhood or, one kind of concentrated area. We wanted to try to make sure that it was spread out, and so it was more manageable, by neighborhoods.
Great. No, I think that it's great to have that additional information, Jamie. And, some of the other things that I heard you talk about was even in considering the site, thinking about what the impact would be on surrounding neighbors, and then also thinking about the safety, both of the people that are going to be living in the site as well as the surrounding neighbors. So really thoughtful approach, sounds like, in terms of not just thinking about the site, but what's happening around it, and wanting to encouraging that community building and connection, both from the neighbors as well as the residents that are going to be there, connecting out into the community as well.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a few more questions. I think we're warming up, folks, in terms of your question chops. So we've got a question here from Kate, and it looks like this one might be to Adam and Ren, and obviously Jamie, knowledge of all things around this. 2 months in, what are the biggest surprises, both good and bad? And we'll start with that, and I'll follow up. The other question was, what's the most urgent need from the community? Parentheses, how can we help? And has anyone left the community? So let's start first, and there's some more questions, but let's start first with the biggest surprises, good and bad, with relating to the Safe Stay site number 1. Who would like to take that?
Yes, I'll go first a little bit. 2 months in, biggest surprises. I really am not surprised, but the biggest, I guess, surprise was how easily we were able to transition probably what would be considered a very challenging population into a very different situation with very, very little conflict or issue. It was very, very, I was very surprised with the smooth transition. I can't even transition. Thank you. I was very surprised with that. And I was really, really surprised with all of the humans that are staying with us. We call our folks humans. They're not clients, or, they're just the humans that we work with. And there was just so many beautiful surprises that, we will be writing about them. Pay attention to our social media. We will share a lot of them out with you as the stories progress. Most urgent need from the community, and how can the community help? Meals is an issue, and diving into our meal train and understanding how many meals are served by the community to all our programs is the best way in COVID worries and fears for volunteers to step in and help out and deliver like appropriate meals to the appropriate location. Because with the outpost, we really don't, we have hot and cold water for eating and drinking, but we don't really have like dishes and a kitchen and things like that. So it really is an encampment of sorts, with each individual person having their own dignity and respect and support. But it is still somewhat encampment. And so reaching out to us and our volunteer coordinator and our people that are trying to handle the influx of what do we need and what can we use and what do we have space for is going to be the best way. So direct communication, no just drop offs. That's going to be one of our biggest. I mean, if we're going to go with bad surprises, I'm going to say there's a couple surprises on the bad side, and that is we as a community in that community, North Image neighborhood, we also live there now, and we understand the implications of living in that neighborhood and all the quirkiness that comes with that. And we can tell you that not all that quirkiness comes from unhoused individuals, because when unhoused individuals come to our gates, we meet them with soup and support and a blanket, and we let them know, when's a good time to come back and talk about what's next steps. But when other people approach our community, we've had some very interesting and concerning moments of safety and security on our doors as well. And I want the neighbors of any community to know that our biggest surprise was how much our safety was actually a concern.
Mhm.
And I really wasn't surprised about that, but we were ready for it, and it was a true thing. And we have a lot of documented moments of we've had to worry about who comes to our gate, who walks into our community, who drives right through, who decides that they want to tell us what we should and shouldn't do. And so our biggest concern has not been from the community, it's been from outside the community and the things that we've had to address as being a neighbor in a community and being a new neighbor.
Mhm. Thank you, Adam. I'm really hearing that theme of safety coming in again and again from all different ways, all different doors, and that goal, Jamie, that you talked about around safety for all is really what's paramount. One more follow-up question: has anyone left the community at this
Yes.
point?
Yeah, so there have been two people, since Adam's off camera, there have been two people that have been asked to leave. And that happened, I think one of them was week 2, the next one was week 3. And they left without incident. It was no, giant thing. They just had a hard time living in community with others and maintaining their ability to be a good neighbor. There's some people who live outside and for a variety of reasons, whether it be mental health issues or just habit, pick up patterns of hoarding, which we just can't have in this space. And then others who, just like anybody else, like you live in apartments, you have neighbors that play their music too loud all night long. And and some of them just don't want to give that up. And that, and that's okay. This is just not the space for you. So those are the two who have left. I can also say the biggest surprise for me, which was one surprise, but both good and bad, largely good, but it felt bad in the moment, was how quickly people living inside there started attempting to get the ball rolling on moving forward. And I just remember in the first 2 to 3 weeks, even I, because I also provide some support to folks who live in that space. And I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, because these 3 people want their IDs and this one wants to go to treatment and it was so much all at one time. And so for a little while I thought, oh my God, I cannot deal with this.
I was
But
like,
then when I
get
sat
through
and
the
thought about it,
holidays. Get through the holidays. It's okay.
I know it was holidays, it was snowing, like everything felt like meltdown crisis mode. But when I sat and thought about it, because my boss, had asked for an update on how things were going, and I was recounting to him all of the things that needed to get done. And as I was recounting that, I thought, this is really exactly as we wanted it to be, right? We wanted people to move into this space and to move forward. It just happened. It began happening so much faster than I thought it would happen. I really thought people are going to move in, because I've been doing this work for a long time, and typically when people move from street to housing, there's this at least month-long period where it's just like they sleep for days and weeks at a time. And they end up not feeling very well because now, you know, adrenaline kind of lowers and they start to feel things that they didn't previously. And we do experience some of that at this site, but I mean, people just like got to work like immediately. It was very fast.
I almost want to piggyback off that and say, Jamie, the difference is, and it's going to be the same with Living Hope and us. The difference is that both of our organizations have been very comfortable and working with the population. We are the population. We consider ourselves part of and don't consider ourselves separate. And Brian's organization is the same. They've been so lifelong dug into helping the folks and really building relationships. And that's why folks were so comfortable to just say, let's get to work. And we're like, whoa, we got more than you can think about. Then let's slow down, but we will get to work together. Thank you. And that was part of the magic of the relationships that we spoke about. And so, yes.
Well, this is wonderful information that you're sharing tonight. And Kate's last question is sort of pulling that together in terms of, you know, plans to recap these results to City Council, to provide data. So at the initial session, you talked about some of the reporting you were going to be doing. Poor puppy. And so what's the plan? What's the plan?
Well,
Your dog has a question, Jamie.
I know. My daughter's getting home and my bloodhound is losing his mind. If the council would like an update, I'm happy to update them at any time. I do know that they have, I think within the last couple of weeks, I emailed out at their request an update of like just all of the things. There's a whole list of number of people employed, number who've gone through treatment, you know, all of the things that have happened up there. So they have received that update. But if they would like an update, like at a council meeting or a workshop, I'm happy to provide that.
Okay. And so my sense is most likely there will be attention to that at some point of wanting to assess how are we doing and what does this mean, right?
Everything is being documented. And so coming up with the idea of how to report out on it is still, you know, first steps with this, but we are definitely documenting all of the good things that are happening.
Okay, great. Well, Kendall has another question, and my sense is this is also around selection. What are the considered areas of highest economic vulnerability within residential areas? So wanting to understand a little bit more about that, and if you need more context.
No, I got it.
Question back. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was part of the site selection criteria that council approved last year, and there is. I don't have it with me, but there is a map that was included in the like council materials. I think back when we first did, when they first approved that criteria. And it was a map that was created by, I think, the Community and Economic Development Department that showed like highest levels of economic vulnerability. And so we really tried to stay, particularly the residential areas. And this area is actually not considered residential. There is residential nearby, but this is actually considered, oh gosh, what is it called? I think it's commercial. I'm not an economic development person, but it's some kind of commercial zone. But I can definitely get the map and send it to you. I believe you've emailed me, so I can absolutely email it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I would say to folks is your questions don't have to stop here. If there are other questions that you have, you can email Jamie, you can go to the Be Heard site and see what other questions people are asking as well. But, continue the dialogue, that this is really meant to be a dialogue of information sharing from both ways, as well as question and answering. And so I want to check in if there's anybody else that has something that you'd like to bring up at this moment. Go ahead, Glenn. Hi, welcome.
Yeah, let me put my hand down really quick. You know, this has been kind of a curious thing for me, because given the neighborhood that this is going to be implemented in, to me, it's concerning that we're not hearing more feedback, and in particular, negative feedback. It feels to me like we have struggled to get the message out to the community, which is typical. It's a really hard place to get people to be involved. They're, you know, busy trying to survive in the, you know, in their lives. So either that, or they're to the point where they just don't feel like their voice may matter, which is a really sad thing. But I have been, you know, there's several people in this meeting right now that were very vocal in their criticism of the navigation center. And I see these people, myself included, somebody that is wholeheartedly supporting this program. And it's making such a big change. It's such a big difference. And I've thought about it a lot, how this makes such a difference. And if you compare it to what some of the other cities are doing, the biggest game changer is that 1,000-foot buffer. I can't say enough for how, I mean, Adam hit it right on the nose just a minute ago. You know, the change in these people's lives just by having a space where they're protected from all these other things that are triggering to them and cause chaos and cause insecurities and cause these emotions in their life that they can't make any progression. They just can't. And so this 1,000-foot buffer is just it's a true game changer. It really is. It provides a place where people really can have stability. It really can start to work on changes that are going to improve their lives. So I don't know what the answer is for trying to get a hold of the rest of the community. Perhaps when it opens, they might get more involved. But anybody, if they may be a bit feel a little bit uncomfortable speaking in this venue, I encourage you to talk to Jamie, talk to Adam, talk to anybody, and go take a look at the original site, the first site, and you'll see that this really is something special. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that. Just perspective that you're sharing about how you're looking at this and how you see it be such a dramatic difference from the experience, you know, the concerns that people had about the navigation center. And I do know that, you know, we do have 2 other meetings. So one is maybe everybody's going to come to Thursday's meeting. I also just want to say that the earlier Safe Stay meetings for the first site had much less attendance. So one, this is a pretty good showing for this, although I know it's a larger community area that's being spanned. And I wonder if maybe Jamie or someone else from the city would want to talk about what has been done in terms of outreach, so so that folks understand how much has been done.
Sure.
You're trying to reach people.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So just like with the first site, letters went out to everyone within 1,200 feet of the site, and that is intentionally to capture everyone within that 1,000-foot buffer, and then everyone just outside that buffer that could potentially be impacted. That will happen with every site that's opened. Additionally, we reached out to, because this particular neighborhood does not have an active neighborhood association, we reached out to Fourth Plane Forward, which is very active in that area, and met with them ahead of time, as well as folks who are leasing space directly next door, a lot of their business owners. And we have a tour of the first site set up for those folks, or sometime, I can't remember if it's this week or next week, but that's going to take place, which I'm happy to do with pretty much anyone who asks for that. And then we did, just as the last time, we did the press release for everyone. And this one actually got some additional press because there's some stories that came out in papers recently about it. And then we put up a sign I believe the sign's up there on the property. Trying to think what else. Oh, we reached out to, because this doesn't have an active neighborhood association, we reached out to the surrounding neighborhood association. So Maplewood, like Brandy's here for that. Maplewood, I can't remember the names of the other ones, but we did reach out. I think I think it was like 4 or 5 surrounding neighborhood associations.
Yes. And the other thing, again, and this is really more to let you know ways that you can communicate with the city, is that you can also send your questions in. And I know city staff have been responding to questions as they come in. And so there are also frequently asked questions. And it's not just questions. I mean, you can make and provide comments. There is a comment section as well.
Yeah.
And so lots of different ways for people to participate, because we understand that participating in a recorded meeting is not maybe everybody's favorite way to do this. And and we will have that opportunity in just a little bit if somebody really had something they wanted to say, but they wanted to do it outside of the formal meeting.
We did also, I forgot, we do also have it up on the Be Heard page. So this site has its own specific page. But then there are lots of people who are subscribed to the Be Heard project that was for the overall homelessness plan that we began last May. And so anyone who is subscribed for updates on that also gets every single update, informed about every update that we put on that.
Great. And I hear maybe for Glenn too, there might be this might be a piece of information for city staff to consider, is, helping the community to understand how many people are engaging in all these different ways. Because again, we're not meeting in a big public meeting hall where we can see each other, and really having a sense of how many people are, seeking information, and not just from city, probably from Adam and Ren and Brian, as well as Tyler. Lots of different ways that stuff is happening, but capturing some of that so that folks understand what is the engagement. Are people interested? To me, it's wonderful to see so many people tonight who are willing to spend time talking about these and listening. So we had one more question. The buffer statement encouraged this question, which is to wanting to understand how many unhoused people are estimated to live within the 1,000-foot buffer. So do we know that? Do we know that there are unhoused people within that buffer zone?
Sure. I mean, I would say at any given time, probably only a handful within that 1,000-foot buffer. This is an area just by nature of where this space is, where a lot of people move through it, and they may set up on the sidewalk or, just kind of nearby the space and then move along. So I'm not expecting that we're going to fill the space with everyone who's camping within that. But we are going to target our initial outreach for filling the site with people who are in the general area, which is probably outside that 1,000 feet. So down in Burbridge Creek, up on Stapleton, as well as, Living Hope Church is actually pretty nearby. So a lot of the folks who live in that general area access services at Living Hope Church. So the goal really is to kind of come up with a list of folks who are interested from their own outreach services and kind of start from there.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up then, if we don't have any other questions coming through. So I want to just see if folks who've been presenting want to say any final closing comments. Lon, was there anything that you wanted to share after listening to the presentations and the questions that have been asked and the comments that have been made?
Yeah, it's just always really good to have the chance to hear the concerns of the community. And you made the point earlier, Nancy. I'm looking forward to the day when we can start doing this kind of stuff in person again, because I do think it is easier for people to have those conversations when you're out there face to face. But if this one, I will be ecstatic if this camp has half the success that the first one has already demonstrated, because I think it's just going to be a great place for the community. You know, Jamie has talked a lot that this is not intended to be a permanent solution, but I'm just glad for the fact that cities by nature don't tend to take risks and don't tend to try something new. But the plan that we were following before wasn't doing anything to really address the issue. So even if these camps only survive for 3 years, that gives time for the nonprofit community, the state, philanthropic organizations to really stand up a more permanent pathway out of homelessness and to really get further into addressing the root causes of it. I mean, we try to be realistic and know that a lot of what we're doing right now is just a kind of a triage to help with the initial response. But it's been a great one so far. And we look forward to the next one, continuing the great work.
Great. Thank you so much for all those reflections. Adam or Red, any closing comments you want to share with the group?
I just want to thank everyone for coming, and I really appreciated Glenn's comment. As uncomfortable as it might seem, we really, really do want to hear people, hear what their concerns are, and add an additional perspective to what our experience might be. And the only way to do that is in that uncomfortable space, which no one looks forward to, but everybody really wants to have a voice in. And so I want to echo what Glenn has, and I hope we can get more participation from people so people are not feeling hurt. We do this in the work that we do with our guests, with our staff, and now we're doing it with our community. We want to hear you. We want to know what you think, and we want to be able to like share our opinions of your concerns and share back and forth dialogue. And so please don't think that this is just another way of, this is a new era and a new thing and a new group of people trying to do new stuff. And I'm very proud to be part of it. And we really do want to hear what the community has to say if we want to continue doing this work together. And I am interested in hearing what people have to say. And I want to know what I can do to help their concerns.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your heart that you're bringing to this. And I know, Brian, you also have talked a lot about bringing your heart. Anything else that you'd like to share?
I too just want to thank everyone for being on here. And we're just super excited for the opportunity just to continue being an asset to the community and doing whatever we can. You know, it's an honor to always be asked by the city, can we do this? Can we do that? And, you know, like I said, it's our heart. Many years ago when this idea was birthed to just open up one random night to provide safety. And, you know, I think as I was thinking, our lead pastor at that time, there was somebody that actually died from hypothermia nearby. And that's what kind of gave him the idea, you know, we got to do something. We can't continue letting this happen in our community. So, you know, here we are several years later, and we're just super excited to be a part of. So again, thank you guys.
Yeah. Anyone else from city? Jamie, I know you've talked a lot.
I have people. Nobody wants to hear.
Anything left in there?
I do appreciate I appreciate everyone coming. I appreciate everyone's comments. I appreciate everyone's questions. Whole lot of what has guided the creation of this plan and this project came from conversations that I had with neighbors who lived around the navigation center before I was even a city employee, as well as just my own experience working with folks who live outside. So I really appreciate everyone's comments, even though sometimes it's difficult.
Great. All right. Well, there's one group of folks that we also wanted to hear back one more time from, and it's you, the community. And just to wrap it up, we'd like to see if you can just take about 30 seconds or less, share in the chat. What did you appreciate about what was shared tonight? Or what's a learning that you'll take away? Just an opportunity for us to share and hear from each other. You know, what stood out for you tonight? maybe just a word or two, doesn't have to be a full sentence, doesn't have to be a paragraph, but we just like to make sure that you've had a chance to also just provide a little bit of your own perspective about what you heard tonight. So if you want to go ahead and share, please do so now. And that's everybody. So city staff. So you're seeing them come in, and I'll point a few of them out, but everybody take a moment to reflect on this. So we got overall positivity, appreciated the ability to be able to chime in. The environment wasn't controlled, so to support a specific narrative, and yet that our goal was really to hear and talk and have a dialogue. Appreciate the sincere efforts of everyone. Appreciate the honest conversation and small scale pragmatic approach to this complicated issue. What I appreciate everyone's thoughtful questions. Yeah, I was just thinking what I appreciated is just how people were thinking about tonight, and the fact that they were being so thoughtful in terms of what they were hearing, what they know, what they're concerned about, and definitely sharing so many ways that they are interested in helping. Here's another comment. Pleased to see that people are bringing opportunity to multiple spaces with overnight and actual help for these folks. City learned from its mistakes. It can do better. Sparked inspiration of how I can be supportive as a household that's a neighbor, how I can include my teen boys. Yeah, so I think lots of unique information presented tonight in terms of not just about a site, it's really about a community, and how to build community with each other.
Nancy,
Yep.
this is Diana Perez. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking an evening of your time to be part of this conversation. And Jamie, maybe you can share the next community conversation that's scheduled, put a link on chat so folks can share that. I don't know if there's a Facebook event or is on the city page, something that each of us can then share out with our groups that we're involved in social media, and share with our friends so that we can grow the voices.
Sure, that's really a terrific idea, Diana. Is if you felt like you this is really a helpful learning experience, if you know others that might benefit, people who have concerns, please invite them to the next two. The next one is Thursday. And I believe that one's earlier in the day. So
Yeah, I think it's
4 p.m.
4:30.
I have to find my calendar. Yeah, all right.
4 o'clock.
4 p.m. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. And that is putting that information is in the chat right now. Grateful for the amazing work behind the scenes, and just appreciate everyone who's presented and shared information tonight. It's been really helpful. So we're going to end this and end early, which that's like a wonderful thing for meetings, right? To end early. And we've got one last slide. Please, there's so many ways for you to be involved. You can share your feedback on Be Heard. You can share your comments. And we've provided you with lots of different resources for getting involved. And I think I'm hearing people are really gratified that there's so much interest in being involved. So thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you at the next community forum. So stay involved. Appreciate it. And here's some more information about additional support. So anyone who wanted to have additional conversation with folks, we are going to stay on So we'll just hang out here. We do also have an opportunity, a way to have you go into a breakout room if you want to have a private conversation with one of the folks that is here, and we will stop the recording. So why don't we go ahead and close